Hi everyone, welcome to the second round of the seventh season of Tier 2 action in the Formula Racing League, which this week comes to you from Austria. 36 races have been held in Spielberg over the years, and in the midst of the Styrian Mountains this evening we are ready for 36 laps of action. One of the shortest racetracks on the calendar with 10 corners. This 4.3 kilometre circuit features not one, not two, but three DRS straights, and the exciting undulation and quick corners are another tough test for our drivers tonight. My name is Rob Kirsch. I'll be guiding you through an evening of action that will see Jay Hartnell try to continue his winning ways. We would have had Becco trying to bounce back from his difficult outing in Monaco last Tuesday night. We still might, but we've been having a lot of connection issues over the course of the evening. Becco is in the session. We have 16 drivers in the session beginning Q1 at the moment. What that essentially all means is that some drivers, got 17 now, some drivers have been getting into the lobby, then being told that they've got connection issues. As a result of that, we've struggled really to get people in the session at the moment. So we'll see. Hopefully it is something that kind of works itself out and improves as this evening progresses. But 17 drivers in the session. We have a little bit different, really, a little bit of a different session at the start of tonight than what we had in Monaco last Tuesday evening. So how does this work? Well, it works much the same as a Formula One race weekend. We have 3 qualifying sessions for you tonight, and then we go into a 50% Grand Prix, which is 36 laps long in this instance. So in Q1 we're going to lose 2 of our 17 drivers. We were initially going to have 18 before Codemasters and EA decided to do the kind of usual things that Codemasters and EA tend to want to do, as Nokedley then makes his way in towards the final sector of the lap, and as he heads then in towards turns 9 and 10, he will begin his first flying lap of the session so far. So they have got, at the moment, 16.5 minutes to get out on track and put their lap times on the board to escape from the first qualifying session. Nokedley then through turn 1 flicks open the DRS rear wing again as he heads up the hill in towards turns 2 and 3. 2 is a flat out left-handed kink, and then turn 3 uphill braking zone, clipping the top of the apex as he brings himself now on to the home straight. DRS open once again on the back of the McLaren as he makes his way downhill. It is a downhill braking zone at turn number 4. Which then takes him back up the hill again as he heads through 5 and in towards 6. And in the midst of these Styrian Mountains, so much undulation, so much for the drivers to contend with, both in terms of the changes of elevation and then in terms of the quick corners as well, that we have at the racetrack. And down towards 9 and 10 then comes Nokedley on his first flying lap of the session. And this then will complete that lap as he rounds turn 10, uses a little bit of that exit curb, and across the line he goes then. And I believe, yes, it was, that lap was deleted because of track limits. So unfortunately for him, that's going to be that lap taken away from him. But he's managed to get a sighter in at least at the moment on the racetrack, which is good news, I guess, to take out of that. But he will need to go around again and set another lap time later on. Meanwhile, Becco has managed to join the session and he has set the first lap time. It's a 1 minute 5.8 from Becco, who started on pole position in Monaco last Tuesday. Unfortunately for him, ended up crashing out of the Grand Prix, having been leading the race. Carlos for Mercedes finished in the points in Monaco last time out, as Swinney goes into first place then for Alfa Romeo. It was Mystery who was battling for much of the Grand Prix actually with Carlos in Monaco last time out. Daz Parker makes his first appearance of season 7, and he goes P1 with a 1 minute 6.4, so 0.6 of a second adrift of Becco, with Swinney up there in P1 for Alfa Romeo. Matty G on a lap as well, currently for the Williams team. Across the line has gone one of the Alpine drivers, which I believe would have been Pinnis crossing the line. Into third place then goes Carlos for Mercedes, and that is him just ahead of his teammate Daz Parker by about 0.3 of a second. Dreamer is into P5 for McLaren, as Nivi makes his way into 5th place for Williams, with his teammate Matty G still making his way round the circuit. Cavalis goes into 6th place. Matty G climbs up to 2nd ahead of Becco, and just behind Swinney, who sets the pace in Q1 at the moment. And Fandro for AlphaTauri, he makes his way round towards the final section of the lap as he cuts across the pit entrance, heads down the hill, going into the final corner of turn 10, and then spins round into the barrier and loses his front wing. He manages, though, I think, as long as he doesn't get involved in any more heavy collisions, to keep his car rolling. And I think as a result of that, he will just about be able to continue in this session. Indeed, he does. So that's good news, at least for Infandro, in that he is able to carry on after that incident. But of course, he will need to come back to the pits. And it's a long way around for him. He's got to go all the way back around the circuit. He can't, of course, come back up the track because because the pit entrance is so far away, and B, because he would be disqualified for that anyway. Wild Dog has got into P10 for Aston Martin, and Fandro, of course, with that slower lap time because of the spin that he suffered earlier on. Pimis into P5 then for Alpine, as we touched on earlier on, with Swinney in P1, just ahead of Matty G. So 1 minute 5.7 for the top two, 1 minute 5.8 for Becco, with a 1:60 for Dreamer. Dare I say it, around Austria, with a lap time as short as this, I'm actually a tiny bit surprised that there are 0.3 of a second between the top four. And that's not an insult to Dreamer. That's literally just what we come to expect from the game. It tends to be abnormally close when it comes to Austria. It's a brilliant lap by Swinney to go into P1 at the moment. Round the final corner then comes Mystery, and he goes into 4th place just behind Becco. So he joins the Ferrari in the 1 minute 5.8 bracket, with Swinney then still leading the way. 11 minutes to go, just over, of the opening qualifying session in Austria. Wild Dog is making his way back to the pits, I would assume, because he's invalidated his lap time. Lorenzo for AlphaTauri, he was another one who was having a couple of issues getting into the session to begin with, way off the circuit. It has gone one of the Alfa Romeos, I believe, and that was Mystery, who's just headed, quite a way off at turn 3. I think he was just getting out of the way, actually, of Lorenzo, just making sure that he wasn't in the AlphaTauri's eye line as he made his way through. Down then in towards the final section of the racetrack comes the AlphaTauri. A little bit wide of the apex of turn 7 is Lorenzo, and he'll know that he can improve. It gave him a little bit of a compromise run really through turn 8. So this isn't going to be the most representative lap time for Lorenzo as he makes his way round the final corner. His teammate Infandro lost it there at the final corner. Lorenzo, I don't think, was a million miles away from doing that himself. He goes into 8th place, and Squiddly Diddly's joined the session as well now for I'll challenge myself. I nearly failed. He's joined the session as well for Ferrari. Will he be allowed in? I think he will. 10 minutes to go. I think the game, hopefully, will allow him to partake in Q1, which would mean that as a result we'll be losing, well, either way, we'll be losing 3 drivers from the first qualifying session heading into Q2. Nakedi was the first driver to go out onto the racetrack. He had his lap invalidated. He's gone back out again, and so far this one's been clean. He makes his way in towards the final 2 corners as well now for McLaren, in towards turn 9, heading down the hill then through to 10, and he will flick open the DRS rear wing, and on the way up towards the start finish line it is P12 for the Nakedi, a 1:6.5 to slot into 12th at the moment. So right now we have got 3 drivers. All of them are in the drop zone, and they are yet to set lap times. I say 3, we'll lose 4 from Q1. My maths is absolutely atrocious at the best of times, and it's shown itself again. Squiddly Diddly, of course, we're hoping that he'll be able to enter the session, and hoping that he'll be able to put a lap time on the board to try and get himself into the top 15 for the second qualifying session. It's a purple first sector that for Fake Scouser, so a good opening sector for him as he flicks open the DRS again. Good evening to everybody, good evening to Jack, who is currently on a lap time of his own in the Red Bull. Good evening to Matthew Green as well. Hope you're all having a good day, hope you're having a good week. It's the start of the week, we're getting towards the middle of it with Wednesday. Tomorrow. Here then comes Fake Scouser in towards the final few corners of the lap. He'll make his way through then towards the final two turns of 9 and 10. Gets the car slowed ever so slightly, bit of a dab on the brake and a downshift or two as well in towards turn 10. Lets the car run slightly onto the exit curve without going too far. P5 for Fake Scouser, and it's a good opening effort from him in qualifying. Jay Hartnell's had his lap invalidated. Jack Bowie is, I think has he backed out of his lap as he makes his way into 7 and 8. I'm not too sure actually. The game is giving me the impression that he might be, but that looks pretty quick as he heads in towards 9 and 10, so maybe that's just my eyes deceiving me as he makes his way into turn 10. Jack Bowie goes 15th fastest for Red Bull, so I think he made a mistake somewhere. Sorry, Matt. Swinny's retired from the session. He's safely through, I think, at this stage. To Q2. And Jay Hartnell then, I think, has backed out of another one, actually. So he is not too happy with how this one's gone, having had his previous one invalidated. Carlos Killer then in P5 is back out on the racetrack. 7 minutes to go in this first qualifying session. So right now we've got Jay Hartnell and Enfandro set to be eliminated from the session. Squidly Diddley will be involved in that as well because he has joined the session, but at the moment he's not been allowed to actually physically join this qualifying session right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Lorenzo up into turn 1 for the AlphaTauri, currently P9. Enfandro, as you can see, still hasn't actually set a representative lap time yet, and that is because he has well, that was the case. It's no longer the case because he's now P11, but that was because he had done a 125 because he span at the final corner, if you remember, a few minutes ago. Lost his front wing, but he is now P11. Him improving just completely took me off my train of thought there. But anyway, so that is him. At the moment, through to Q2, but there are still, as I mentioned, a few minutes left, just under 6 minutes left for some of these drivers, Nivi and Jay Hartnell in particular, to try and change that. Jay Hartnell's on a 1:13.2, having not set a representative lap time yet, so he is going round again at the moment to try and improve his fortunes, and wide goes Lorenzo, and that's that lap gone for him. Jay Hartnell then is making his way in towards the final sector as he comes out of turn 8, rises up the hill and then down again in towards turn 9. There's a car coming into the pits who will just about be out of his way by the time he makes his way in towards the final apex of turn 10. Flicks open the DRS rear wing, does Jay Hartnell, and across the start finish line to go into 10th position for Haas. So it's a 1 minute 6.2. The cut-off at the moment is, where are we? 1 minute 6.5, so there's 3/10 in it. At a track this short, 3/10 of a second are difficult to make up, really. But it can be done. 5 minutes to go. The track is getting greener. It's therefore getting quicker. There's more and more grip for the drivers to exploit. And of course, they're just gaining that bit of confidence as well. From the first lap to the last lap of qualifying, you've just naturally got a little bit more confidence in the car, in the tyres, to be able to go quicker. And so that ultimately is what the drivers will be hoping is going to happen, particularly those towards the bottom of the order. Mystery has left the session. He's decided as well that his lap of a 1:5.8 is good enough to see him through to the next phase of qualifying. The Haas of Jay Hartnell, I wouldn't say was particularly helpful to McKinley there, but he does negotiate the Haas car as he makes his way in towards the final couple of corners then of the lap. Through in towards turn 9 he goes, clips the apex. You can see how hard he's trying to find every bit of space available to him as he rounds the final turn up towards the start finish line then for Kedley, and he goes P10. 1 minute 6.2, and it's still a 1:65 as the cut-off at the moment. Becco is happy as well with where he is, because he has retired on a 1.5.8. I should imagine that will be enough. So at the moment, it's Wild Dog and it's Bowie who are yet to go back round, and we're yet to see those two drivers really, I think, show their true pace, because Jack Bowie was challenging for the win in Monaco, if you remember correctly. So he has more pace than that, I'm sure of it, and I'm sure he'll unleash it on his final run. So it is close towards the bottom of the order right now. A 1 minute 6.5 for everyone from 14th to 17th, and then it's a 1.6.2 for Lorenzo. So Infandro and Cavallis are not safe by any stretch of the imagination. They have still got a lot of work to do to see themselves into the second qualifying session. The top 5 are not going again. They shouldn't need to. It would be very surprising if they have to. Wild Dogs just set a purple middle sector for Aston Martin. That is a good run from him so far. He's got to keep it together coming into these final couple of corners. We see so many laps invalidated at turns 9 and 10. So far, so good through 9. Good run through turn 10. Keeps the car nicely on the racetrack. And across the line for Wild Dog to go P2. It's a really good lap, that, for the Aston Martin. And that should be him safe on a 1.5.7. Joins Swinney and Matt on that lap time. And so we have got Lorenzo, Infandro, Cavallis and Bowie all back out on the racetrack. Lorenzo is just coming to the end of his latest qualifying run. 1.6.2, it should be enough, but this would make absolutely sure of it if he can improve as he rounds the final corner. Is it going to be an improvement? No, it's not for Lorenzo. So that is, yeah, it's fine. He should still be okay. But, yeah, at the moment then, that looks like his... it does look like he's safe, to be honest. It does look like he's okay, but who knows? You never know. Infandro's just begun a lap then for AlphaTauri as he makes his way then on to the second DRS straight of the lap. Across the line then goes Nokedli, and he improves to P9. So that's him just nudging himself up the order a little bit more. And that just makes sure, really, of his position in the next qualifying session. Cavallis on a lap as well. He makes his way through turn 3. Jack Bowie is in the middle sector as we speak. So, of the drivers who need to set another lap time, well, Lorenzo doesn't, really. And Fandro is making his way at the moment in towards that final part of the lap as well. So it is going to be Jack Bowie, the first of that kind of bottom-ish group, that's going to set the next lap. Lorenzo goes P4, so that really is him safe now. As round the final corner then comes Jack Bowie. Is this going to be enough to get him into Q2? Yes, it is. P9 for the Red Bull. That should just about be enough. And Fandro now rounds the final corner. Nivi could be in trouble. He is in trouble. He's out of Q1. He might have thought he was safe by staying in the pits. And Cavallis as well improves to P11. That puts Jay Hartnell out of qualifying. He retired earlier on, I think, thinking that he was safe to make it into the next phase of qualifying, but he hasn't been. The track has evolved massively because Jack Bowie's improved by 5/10. Cavallis has improved by 5/10 as well, and that ultimately has been the difference for Jay Hart and the Nivi on a 1 minute 6.2, and that has ultimately proven to be not a good enough lap time to see you through to the next phase of qualifying, despite me thinking that it was. Pimis then, P15, he just about survives by less than a tenth of a second. And so at the end of qualifying 1, it is Jay Hartnell, the winner in Monaco, and it is Nivi who are out of the opening qualifying session in Spielberg. So probably not what they expected when they came in towards the final couple of minutes of qualifying. They might have even thought that they were safe, but massive improvements towards the end of the session have seen both Red Bulls get themselves into Q2. Cavallis and Jack Bowie assuring their survival in qualifying as they make their way into the second qualifying session of the evening. But that is a surprise, isn't it, for Jay Hartnell? And I think he'll be disappointed. It wasn't really to know, I don't think, but the track was going to improve as much as it was, that the lap times were going to get as better, as good as that so quickly. But ultimately, that is the way that things have panned out for him, and he's going to have a bit of a task on his hands in the Grand Prix to try and make it up the order. It's going to have to be a really good recovery drive, but we saw his pace in Monaco, we saw his racing ability in Monaco, and how that translated to what ultimately was a brilliant performance from him over the course of the evening to go and take full points and the victory in the Monaco Grand Prix in round number 1. Round number 2 is going to have to be much harder work from him. Swinny with the fastest lap time in Q1 on 1 minute 5.7 from the Alfa Romeo to take first place from Wild Dog, who himself had a bit of a challenge on his hands at one point in Q1 to make his way into Q2, ended up surviving, and he made his way then up into second with a really good final effort. So it is Swinny P1 in the first qualifying session, and then down towards the bottom of the order, it is Jay Hartnell, and it is Nivy in P16 and P17, and we should hopefully line up with Squidly Diddly in the Ferrari in 18th position, with him having joined the session kind of midway through. He wasn't allowed to join, unfortunately, so we couldn't have any involvement from him in the first qualifying session. Just the 2 drivers eliminated from qualifying out on track. And it is 2 drivers in Jay Hartnell and Nivy who you might not necessarily expect. But then again, who would you expect to be eliminated? It is such a tight field, this one. And we will have 2 more excellent qualifying sessions coming our way. 15 minutes for Q2. 12 minutes for the third and final qualifying session. That will be the top 10 shootout. And then we go in to the 50% Grand Prix. So we've got a slightly later finishing time as well in the session, and even later with the fact that we had also a later start anyway, because of the fact that we had some connection issues. Some of them for myself, actually. Had to join the session late, so thanks for that, Codemasters. Thanks, EA. Cheers, guys. It's a good game. Some say it's worse than last year, but I don't know. Make your own minds up. I don't know. It's something that maybe I shouldn't wade into too much. But anyway, that is yeah, that's a massive debate, isn't it? That's a whole podcast worth of debate on that one. Is the game better or worse than it was last year? Who knows? Anyway, Q2 begins. Now, usually before you would have the tyres used. I'm sure you don't need to be told this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You would usually have in Q2 the drivers using the tyres that they use in this session in the race. They would start on the tyre that they use in this session. However, that rule was abolished coming into this year. You can qualify in Q2 on whatever tyres you want and then start the race on whatever tyres you want as well. Q2 no longer dictates the tyre that you start the race on. There's another little thing that just added that little bit extra to the races this season, just adds that little bit more choice, that little bit less predictability, which probably has been a good thing, I think, in amongst as well. Of course, the changes that we've had to the cars themselves to try and promote some better racing. One thing you get is a little bit of this, really. Lots of drivers on an outlap at the same time, and not an awful lot of track space to play with, purely because yeah, it's just such a short track, so there's naturally less space that you have to work with. But in towards turns 2 and 3 then comes Becco, ended up 3rd place in the first qualifying session, was P1 for a while, but Swinny took 1st place off him, and then Wild Dog went P2 at the end. But that was a sign, I think, in Q1. It's nothing against Wild Dog, it's absolutely no, it's not any sort of reflection on him, but the track evolved quite a lot towards the end of Q1, and so I think Wild Dog's lap, it was a very, very good lap indeed, brilliant lap from the Aston Martin. I think it showed that the track is going to get a lot better towards the end of Q2 and then Q3, so it's really going to be a case of watching out for those final lap times in these 2 upcoming sessions. That's going to be a really big determining factor. Becco then, round turn 9 in towards turn 10, his first flying lap of the second qualifying session is going to be good enough for a 1 minute 5.4. So that is already an improvement on what we saw, 0.3 of a second better than the best lap time in the first qualifying session. 1.7.0 for Jack Bowie. Fake Scouser goes P2 on a 1.5.8, so similar to what we saw in Q1. I think Jack Bowie's made a mistake somewhere in his lap. Wild Dog's done a 1.6.1 for Aston Martin on medium tyres. What it does do, if you go onto a different set of mediums in Q2, it doesn't the new rule doesn't take away that advantage. It does give you an extra set of soft tyres for the race if you need them. So that is just that extra bit that it gives you. You have an extra set of tyres, but you're not locked into starting on one particular set of tyres. And that's why that rule is so... It's quite influential, really. It does change the race weekend quite a lot, I think. Pimis into P4 for Alpine. Important to note as well, it's getting a little bit darker over the racetrack. Whether that's just the time that the race has been set to, whether or not that is a sign of rain coming in, I guess that remains to be seen. One of the joys we get as commentators in league racing is that we don't have any idea. We haven't got a Scooby unless the drivers actually tell us what the weather's about to do. So we don't know what what the forecast is for the session. And we can only work with what we see out on the track and what the drivers might just be kind enough to give us when they're looking at their forecast that they of course do see. Anyway, here comes Daz Parker. We've got 9 laps on the board in Q2 so far. One of them is a 131.5 from Swinny, so that's obviously not representative at all. Daz Parker's gone wide at turn 10, which invalidates his lap time, so we're not going to be seeing one from him just yet. Here comes Lorenzo, makes his way through turn 2 and up towards turn 3. It was a good late effort from him. He was another one, Lorenzo. He made quite a big improvement towards the end of the first qualifying session. Of course, everybody towards the bottom of the order did so. They were all kind of forced to head back out to make sure they made it into the final qualifying session. And that is just something that Lorenzo took advantage of, and that was something that we saw that was quite interesting. It's just the fact that it will evolve quite a lot. And the tyres are different this year as well. One thing we noticed at the start of the year is that drivers were often having to go on 2 install laps or 2 warm-up laps to try and get these tyres up to temperature. And so, therefore, with the fact that the tyres are so much more difficult to get to temperature, therefore means that every little bit of temperature you gain makes a bigger difference. If that makes any sense, it might not. Hopefully it does. Lorenzo goes P5 for AlphaTauri, 1 minute 6.2. Whereas if the tyres were as easy to get up to temperature as they were last year, for example, as Daz Parker comes into the pits, gains of temperature in the tyres wouldn't make as big a difference because the tyres are in a good operating window anyway, if that makes sense. So there's a finer line between being in a bad operating window and a good operating window with these tyres. If that makes any sense. I hope it does. Let me know if it doesn't and I'll try and explain it, but I'm pretty... hopefully you get it. Hopefully you get it. Anyway, Wild Dogs into P4 for Aston Martin. Lorenzo for AlphaTauri. Currently P5 then, after his lap time last time out. He has backed up for this one. He's going to come into the pits. Again, despite the fact that they're not starting on these tyres, you don't really want to overuse them. These are tyres that you could end up using in the race at some stage. You don't want to put too much wear into them as Carlos makes his way onto the 3rd DRS straight. So 10 lap times on the board right now. We've got Matty G on a lap. On an out lap at the moment. Carlos on a flying lap. Mystery on a flying lap. And Cavalis on a flying lap as well, with Daz Parker having just come into the pits a moment ago after invalidating his first run. The other Mercedes, you can see there's a little bit of oscillation going on in the Mercedes. Porpoising isn't really a factor of this year's game. Oh, that could be a problem for Carlos as Mystery goes P2. Is that going to be... Not really. The Red Bull has sped up. That's important, that. I think it was Cavalis actually just in front of him. In fact, it wasn't. It was Jack Bowie who... I've no idea, actually. Was it Jack Bowie? No, it wasn't Jack Bowie. I think it was Cavalis then, wasn't it? It was Cavalis. I was right first time. It was Cavalis who was just in front then of Carlos, who anyway goes P6. And I thought he was going to get in the way, but I think he just saw the Mercedes just in time and sped up at the end of the lap. And that was just about enough then for Carlos to be able to finish his lap without being disrupted by the Red Bull. Jack Bowie round the final couple of corners then for what is the leading Red Bull at the moment. The only Red Bull to have set a lap time. And he crosses the line, improves by 0.6 of a second, but stays in P9. But he's on that train now, really. Going up to P7 really, to be honest, isn't it? Because it's then another 0.3 of a second up to Carlos in P6. So there are little groups, aren't there, at the moment, in terms of pace. Sometimes at Austria you end up with the whole group clustered together because of the short lap. But at the moment, we've got a little bit more of a disparity, which is it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just interesting. Matty G goes P2 for Alpine. So that is him then at the moment heading into the third and final qualifying session, but we have still got plenty of time to go in qualifying 2. Daz Parker is now the only driver not to set a lap time. You could argue Swinney's in that bracket as well because he's not set a representative lap yet in Q2. A 131.5 is nowhere near what we absolutely know he can do in his Alfa Romeo. Daz Parker then. He lost his lap time first time round at the final corner, so he's got to keep it clean as he did for the rest of the lap, and then he's got to make sure that he doesn't go too wide at something. It's so difficult to get right because if you get that initial turn in wrong, you're kind of screwed. You're either going to have to back out or you're going to go wide, and then of course you've got that massive sausage curb on the inside as well. That can also spit you wide. It's so difficult to get it right. Just a massive credit to the drivers for consistently putting that off as Daz Parker goes into 8th for Mercedes. A 1.6.2 from him, 0.3 of a second behind his teammate Carlos Cavalis then with a 1.6.7 right now. So at the minute we've got both Red Bulls in the bottom 5 in Q2 as Pinnis pits as well. We've got McKedley, I think he was he's also making his way into the pits for McLaren, and as a result he will so he's on mediums as well, so there's potentially more that he can do with that too. Dreamer is purple in the middle sector for McLaren, round turn 10. He comes now, and he'll open up the DRS rear wing all the way up towards the start finish line. Currently P5, goes P3 on a set of soft tyres does Dreamer, so breaks into that top 3. 1.5.6 from him. Becco currently the only driver in the 1.5.4 bracket, with Matty G in second place behind him. How am I actually quick, says Matt. Well, some good talent by the looks of it. That's how. Pimis, purple middle sector for him. 0.3 of a second up on his previous best. So his best first time round was good enough to be quite far up the order, if I remember correctly. But now down in P11, the track's evolved. More lap times have been put in. Pimis rounds the final corner for Alpine, and up towards the start finish line for him. He goes P3 for the Alpine team, so moves himself just ahead then of Dreamer in the McLaren. Fake Scouse is out there as well in the other Alpine. He's just a little bit up on his previous best lap time too, so both Alpines going well in this phase of qualifying. One in third place, one in 7th place. Fake Scouse, I'm sure, would like to just make a little bit more certain of his place in the third and final qualifying session as he rounds the final corner and crosses the start finish line and goes into 5th place, a 1 minute 5.6 ahead of Wild Dog, who is on those medium tyres. All of that now has pushed Kedley back into P11. Swinney's headed back out onto the racetrack on a set of soft tyres for Alfa Romeo. He's aiming to get 1 or 2 more runs in then, I suppose, to get himself into the top 10 for the pole position shootout. So the cut-off right now, 1 minute 6.2 as Becco retires from the session. He is all good, I think, for Q3. 1.6.2 from Lorenzo, who is a thousandth of a second slower than Daz Parker. And he's got Nokedley in P11 on a 1.6.3. Surely the McLaren driver is going to go for soft tyres for his final run. Surely you wouldn't risk it. I know he wants to give himself another set of softs for the race, but surely you wouldn't risk that. I don't think it's worth it. As he rejoins, well, he is on an outlap now, Nokedley. And what is he on? He is on, he's on softs, isn't he? Yeah. So I was going to say it's not worth the risk, is it, of going on to mediums again? So I think that's a good move for Nokedley, if I'm honest. As down towards turn 4 then comes Swinney for Alfa Romeo, and we'll get his second sector split in a not too distant future. The first sector, I don't think I was paying much attention actually to the first sector. I'm your ever observant commentator. So it is an improvement of 14.3 seconds. This is obviously going to be much better for Swinney, and it'll improve massively in the final sector as well in his Alfa Romeo. In towards 9 and 10 he goes then, heading downhill, slightly blind. Here's the apex of turn 9. Turn 10 a little bit more visible as he makes his way then down past the exit curve and across the line to go into 4th place with a 1 minute 5.6. That should be Swinney safely through then to the next phase of qualifying. He is 0.6 of a second roughly clear now of that cut-off. Daz Parker knows he's got to set a better lap time. He is 1.5 tenths up on his previous best at the moment in the Mercedes. He gets pushed now back into the drop zone. Mystery's out there as well. Meanwhile, Lorenzo has set a better lap time for AlphaTauri. Carlos is also on the cusp for Mercedes, and he is on an outlap at the moment. He will have enough time to go around and set another lap. Here comes Daz Parker then, and he's just up on his previous best. Is he up by enough though? Because that's a 1.6.2. It might not be enough. Carlos is now in the drop zone as well for Mercedes. Across the line comes Daz Parker, who he actually doesn't improve. He lost a bit of time in the final sector. Cavalis improves to P12, so that is probably him out of the second part of qualifying. Jack Bowie, though, has done enough. He's made it up to P4. Good lap by the Red Bull, and that should be him then safely into the final part of qualifying as well. I think we've got a car off here on the infield. Indeed, we do. It's just a car getting out of the way. Mystery is coming up then towards the end of the... in fact, no, he was the one who went off, wasn't he? He was the one who ran wide or went off the circuit to allow Cavalis to go through. And so we might just have that Q3 top 10 sorted as Carlos then makes his way into turn number 4 for Mercedes. So let's see if he can pull something special out of the bag here as he makes his way up through turn 5 in towards turn 6. Daz Parker looks to be out in P15 at the moment. Carlos makes his way in towards turns 7 and 8 now, and he is up at the moment. But is he up by enough? I don't think so. It's a 1 minute 5.7, which is currently the cutoff right now. We've got Wild Dog, who has backed out of his lap, so that is it for him. I think in qualifying, I don't think he's going to have enough to make it through as Carlos round the final corner there for Mercedes. Is this enough for him? Oh, it is. It's P1. What a lap that is. 0.5 of a second up on his previous best. He pulled that lap time out of absolutely nowhere, did Carlos, to go and get himself into the top 10 with some aplomb as well. That was with flying colours that he made his way through. A brilliant late lap from Carlos to make his way into P1 for Mercedes, and that also pushes Enfandro into the bottom 5. Another one who I think thought he was safe. Lorenzo was on a lap. He doesn't need to be anymore. That is him safely in then to the third and final qualifying session. And at the end of Q2, we've got Enfandro, Wild Dog, Avalis, and Parker, all of whom will be starting 11th to 15th for the Austrian Grand Prix. They weren't able to make it through the next phase of qualifying. How tight was it in the end? Well, it was 0.5 of a second between Enfandro and Daz Parker. Enfandro missed out by just over 1/10 of a second to Lorenzo, who will be grateful to make it into the top 10. He was on a lap. I think he realised he didn't need to be anymore and then backed out towards the end of it. And so that is that for the second qualifying session. So Carlos took P1 with a brilliant lap at the end of the qualifying session. And that then pushes Daz Parker into P15. It pushes Enfandro out just at the end of Q2. Some heroics from Carlos Keller to put himself into P1. Becco denied first place again late on for Ferrari. But, of course, he won't retire from the end of the session quite so early next time. So this is going to be a very intriguing battle for pole, this, I reckon. And there's confirmation then of Daz Parker, Cavalis, Mystery, Wild Dog, and Enfandro all out of that second part of qualifying, heading into Q3. Jack Bowie is running 8 on the rear wing in Austria. That's brave is the word I think I'm going to use for that one. Brave from Jack Bowie. But that might explain a little bit of that pace deficit in Q1, potentially. Because we did see some tremendous pace in Monaco last time out. And of course you can't change that rear wing either. You can only change the front wing and a couple of other bits on the car, but predominantly you are locked in to yeah, to that setup. So it's going to be 8 rear wing for for Jack Bowie. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but no. Okay. Yeah. So that is Jack. But make your own minds up on that one. Again, I'm not going to get too involved in that in that debate. It is interesting. It's an interesting one. I'll put it that way. From Jack to go with 8 on the rear wing. Either way, Q3 is underway then. So we've got 12 minutes, just under that now, for the drivers to contest pole position this evening. And then we will see who's going to come out on top, who is going to be, who's going to have the best row, the best view of the grid, I should say, on the front row. For the Austrian Grand Prix, Beko's looked quick all night so far. He's generally been right at the pointy end throughout Q1 and Q2. He retired from the session early in both of the opening 2 qualifying sessions, and then was displaced later on. But I mean, if he can, of course, he'll set a lap time at the end of it this time. And is he going to be able to take pole as a result? We had Carlos go P1 in Q2. Swinney's generally been up there as well so far in qualifying. Matty G was up in P2 for most of Q2. He found some brilliant pace in the second qualifying session in particular. So, yeah, there's going to be an awful lot of intrigue, I think, around this qualifying session. Nick Headley then starts his first qualifying run in Q3. He'll be the first one to set a lap time unless anything goes wrong. Hopefully it doesn't on this lap. And up through turn 2, then in towards the uphill braking zone of turn 3 for him. Beko's begun a lap as well, as has Matty G. For Williams, Carlos also embarks on a lap for Mercedes. We've got Fake Scouser and Swinney still in the pits. Jack Bowie and Pimis are on out laps at the moment, with Lorenzo also having started a lap for AlphaTauri. So we've had both McLarens make it into the third and final qualifying session. I believe that is the only team to have got both drivers into the third and final session, I think. No, sorry, one of 2 teams, I should say. Alpine have done so as well with Fake Scouser and Pimis. I was bound to get that wrong, wasn't I? Anyway, so 2 teams getting both drivers in. Nakedi round the final corner, and that is for him going to be a 1 minute 5.6. That's a decent lap, that, from the McLaren. A really good opener. Jack Bowie is... Where's he at the moment? Beko goes P1. We've got Jack Bowie for Red Bull. And a spinner as well. And that is one of the Alpines, I believe. Yeah, it is. It's Pimis, who's lost his front wing. And, well, he's not going to set a good lap time with that one, I can pretty much guarantee you. Carlos Killer goes into second place now for Mercedes. 1 minute 5.6 for the Mercedes driver. Matty G into P5, having presumably made a mistake on his lap because it's a 1 minute 20.3. So he's almost certainly made a mistake on that lap. Lorenzo into P4 for AlphaTauri. 1 minute 5.6 for him. With Pimis making his way back to the pits. Dreamer on the lap now currently as well for McLaren. So he begins his first lap. So I'd say 4 proper lap times on the board. 5 officially, with Matty G having crossed the line after making a mistake on his initial run. Whether he's gone for it again, looks like he has. Looks like he has gone for another push lap actually. Matty G as he makes his way downhill and towards 7 and 8, and indeed he has. So we'll see. It's a purple middle as well, that, for Matty G. This is a good lap so far from him. Up then towards 9 and 10 he comes as he plunges back down the hill, hits the apex of 9, then goes wide, and that invalidates his lap time. That's a shame. That would have been good, I think, as he crosses the line. It would have been a 1 minute 5.6, so that would have put him right on that top 4 basically. So that is a shame that one's gone. Dreamer's come back into the pits for McLaren, so he wasn't happy with his lap. Swinney is out there currently for Alfa Romeo. With 7.5 minutes to go, he's about to begin his first flying lap of qualifying 3 as well. He is one to look out for, Swinney. He was right at the pointy end throughout Q1, and in fact, I think he's actually invalidated this lap. He has indeed, by going off on his out lap, which is something you do occasionally see. It's a little bit odd to see it, but yeah, I think that's what's happened to him. Fake Scouser out lap for him at the moment. Yet to set a lap in Q3 with Beko P1, 1 at 5.6. He is just under a tenth of a second clear of Carlos in the Mercedes, then O'Kedley in P3 for McLaren, Lorenzo in P4 at the moment, and then Matty G in 5th place, having invalidated his lap. He's made his way back into the pits for Williams. For Alpine, here comes Fake Scouser in towards the last couple of turns before he begins his final lap. He's been getting temperature into those soft compound tyres, has the man from Liverpool, and he makes his way round turn 10 and up then in towards turn 1 comes the Alpine as he meets the apex of the first corner. That's a good start to the lap as he flicks open the DRS rear wing again, makes his way through towards the left-handed kink of turn 2 and then the braking zone of turn number 3. You can see how low the front wing is to the ground, the ride height of the car changing at the front just as the diff kicks in going into the corners. There's no active suspension as such on the cars, but there's so many clever little tricks that the engineers use on the cars. It's all legal, just about. They find loopholes, the engineers in Formula 1. Such smart people, the smartest in the world, as they get the cars to perform as quickly and as well as they possibly can. In towards 7 and 8 comes Fake Scouser, perhaps a little wide of the first apex as he makes his way up the hill and then back down again through turns 9 and 10. And Matt says he span on his first flying lap, so that was why he was a little bit off the pace on that one. And across the line comes Fake Scouser to go into 5th position, 1:6.2, so 0.6 of a second away from 4th place Lorenzo. If Matt can find the same pace that he was on before he invalidated his second lap, he'll undoubtedly go quicker than that. Swinney has gone into 5th place now for Alfa Romeo. We've got Dreamer on a lap again for McLaren. Looks as though he might have, he's backed out of that one as Jack Bowie goes into P2 for Red Bull. 1:5.5. It's only just, it's 0.4 of a second slower than Beko, who does then improve for Ferrari and extends his gap out front. And Beko then further into the lead in the Ferrari. So it's him leading from Jack Bowie at the minute. Pimis is about to finish his flying lap for Alpine. So we've had one Alpine go into what is now P7. The other one crosses the line and goes P6. And that pushes Fake Scouser then into 8th position with Swinney separating the two Alpine drivers at the moment, with Dreamer beginning his flying lap at the end of this one. I would assume 4 minutes to go in qualifying. We'll see those final runs in a moment with Carlos, O'Kedley, Lorenzo, Fake Scouser and Matty all in the pits at the moment. And it does seem in these sessions as the later you go out, the better it is. It almost feels like Beko and Jack Bowie might have almost put themselves at a slight disadvantage by going out when they have. Maybe they could have just stayed in the pits for a little bit longer and got themselves out late on, unless they've got time to come into the pits, get a fresh set of tyres on and go out again, which they actually they have because they just come into the pits. So ignore all of that because they're fine. They will now come back out for another run and they'll set those lap times at the end of the session. This is panicking for them there, but it's fine. They know what they're doing. They've got it. They're fine. Dreamer downhill into turn 4, clips the apex, then comes back up again through turn 5, and then he's got the left-hander of turn 6 coming at him. That takes him back down the hill again in towards turn 7 and 8, so it brings it into the left. That'll take him through to the right-handed curb, and then he'll make his way up the hill and then back down again through towards 9 and 10. A little bit of lag, nice to see. Through towards the final corner he comes. It's been a decent lap this so far. Oh, and he's left the session. Of course he has. So that is Dreamer, I think, just basically just losing connection right as he was about to finish the lap. I've never really seen that. I can't say I've seen that. I've seen disconnections. I can't say I've ever seen a driver who's about to finish a lap just disappear because his connection's gone. I can't say that I've witnessed that before. That's odd, isn't it? That's EA and Codemasters. I think they outdo themselves. They used to outdo themselves every month or every year. Now it went to every month, then it went to every week, then it was every night. Now it's every minute, to be fair. They're finding something new to go wrong. It's brilliant, almost. I'll say brilliant. It's very annoying, but yeah, spectacular. Brilliant, I have to say. Yeah, outstanding stuff. They've made a good game this year. A really good game. Anyway, the final laps for qualifying are about to get underway. I hope Dreamer can well, no, he can't really, can he? I don't think. If you rejoin now, he could probably get back out, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, here comes Fake Scouser. He's about to begin his latest representative lap time. Jack Bowie has retired from the session. I don't know if he's... That's just in the pits, isn't it, that he's retired? So he clearly feels that he hasn't got enough to the final part of the final minute, of course. Fake Scouser then begins his latest lap. We've got a nice toe as well here off Swinney. Swinney's going to give him a little bit of help up towards turn 3. And so that's a nice slipstream for Fake Scouser to work with as he comes through turn 3. Then makes his way downhill as he comes in towards the right-hander of turn 4. It's such a difficult one. It's a hairpin, but it's a fast-paced hairpin. And then, of course, it's negative camber. Back uphill again. You've got the gravel off the left-hand side to add to all of that. Such a tight turn. Such a difficult one to get right. And one of those where you can gain or lose a fair bit, I would say. Fake Scouser through 7 and 8 then for Alpin as he climbs up the hill in towards the final sector. He's 8th at the moment, is Fake Scouser. And when he crosses the start-finish line, will he be better off than that? He's 0.3 of a second off Swinney in P7. Fake Scouser across the line, and he goes second fastest. It's a brilliant lap from Fake Scouser to move up then into P2. And so Becco in the Ferrari, he's going to come back into the pits because he's invalidated his lap. So that 151, it doesn't look beatable at the moment, but you just never know if somebody might be able to topple that with a spectacular finish to qualifying. Lorenzo's 0.2 of a second up on his previous best. That could be potentially P2 for him if he can improve further, and it is P2 for him. It's a 1.5.3. It's a couple of tenths of a second slower than what Becco's done in P1. At the moment, though, nobody able to displace Becco. Pimis is down in the middle sector. Can he make the improvements in the final sector? He can, but goes to P6, just behind Carlos in the Mercedes, who himself now goes up to 3rd place. Fake Scouser not improving on this latest run, and so the only driver left to complete a lap is going to be Swinney. He makes his way then into turns 9 and 10 for Alfa Romeo. What can he do here? Can he go and take pole? Is this enough to snatch pole from Becco? I'm not sure. No idea whether it was or not. It's 4th for Swinney. It was so close, I think, really, but in the end, Swinney taking 4th. It is Becco taking P1 by just under 0.2 of a second from Lorenzo. Carlos in P3 for Mercedes. Swinney in the end taking 4th, just ahead of Fake Scouser. He was only just displaced, was the Alpine. Jack Bowie in P6. Pimis in 7th place with Leclerc behind in 8th position for McLaren. Dreamer in 9th, his teammate, and then the Williams of Matty G in P10. He had another lap invalidated, unfortunately for him. Nothing really went right for Matt, for Matt in that session, unfortunately. So he will start this race in 10th position in Spielberg. So the race coming right up in 36 laps of this racetrack with Becco on pole for Ferrari. It means that we've got 2 races and the same pole sitter for both of them. Becco showing imperiousness in qualifying. Showed perhaps 1 or 2 weaknesses in the race in Monaco. I say 1 or 2. It was only really 1, but it cost him the race. Cost him any further participation when he went into the barrier. The walls aren't so close in Austria. That's something that the drivers will take a lot of heart from. Cynically, it's probably also the reason we've got a few more drivers in the lobby this evening than we had last week. But 18 drivers ready to take the start of this race. Hopefully 18 drivers. Dreamer, I don't know if he's going to be able to continue because he lost connection during Q3, and that might have put paid to his participation tonight because I've not seen anything pop up saying that he's rejoined the session. So we'll see what happens. But tonight, in this second round of the season, we are potentially set for a second winner in as many races with Jay Hartnell starting way down the order, knocked out in the first phase of qualifying in P16 was the Haas, and he has got a difficult uphill struggle in his hands to get himself into the podium places by the end of the afternoon. Can he put it off? Will somebody else take the win tonight? It looks like it's going to be a tight battle at the top. In terms of one lap pace, we've seen those gaps. In terms of race pace, who knows who can bring themselves into play. The 8 rear wing for Jack Bowie, you never know if that will work in race trim. You never know if that's going to be better for tyre wear, if he'll be able to look after his rear tyres better than a lot of the other drivers as a result of running that setup. We've got just under half a minute to go of qualifying, of the drivers just choosing those last few setups. Dreamer's left again, so we were going to have him, I think, in the session, but it's going to be difficult, I think, at this point. 12 wins from pole over the course of the 36 races in Austria so far, including the Styrian Grand Prix. Mercedes have won 6 and Red Bull 4 of the last 11 races in Austria since its return in 2014 at the turn of the hybrid era. Ferrari with the other one of those victories through Charles Leclerc in Austria. Dreamer joins the session again for Ferrari. Hopefully that is going to be him joining the session for good at this stage. He leaves again, so there you go. Let's just hope that he can find a way to join permanently at some stage, the McLaren driver. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think Austria, from what I remember, was Ferrari's last race win. I'm fairly certain. Which, you know, for a team that started this season as the quickest, with the quickest car, is a bit of a surprise. But yeah, the Austrian Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc's win, was the last that Ferrari took this season. And they're now in a battle with Mercedes for second place. There's been all sorts of reports today. Is Mattia Binotto going to leave the team? Is he going to be replaced by Alfa Romeo team principal Fred Vasseur? Ferrari have come out and said that is completely unfounded. There is no intention whatsoever at the moment. Or at least they've suggested there's no intention to replace Mattia Binotto. Now then, we've only got 2 drivers starting on the soft tyres. Dreamer's joined again. Jack Bowie and Mystery are on the softs for the start of this Grand Prix. Becco on the mediums, along with Lorenzo. We've got Carlos, and we have got Cavolis starting on the hards as well as Squidly Diddley. The rest on mediums. So this is going to be an interesting one, actually. A couple on softs, Jack Bowie being one of them, so he could be one to watch in the first stint of the race. Carlos has been disqualified from the formation lap. I believe he'll be okay to take the start, though. I don't think it's a disqualification from the race itself, which is good. And we are almost ready then for this race to get going. Becco started on pole in Monaco, couldn't finish the Grand Prix. Will he be able to see the checkered flag this evening and take the points in Spielberg in the second round of Tier 2 in Season 7 in the Formula Racing League? We are hopefully going to find out in the not too distant future, eventually, when the stewards decide that they would like to get this race up and running. It's another brilliant night, really, isn't it, for EA and Codemasters. Migrating the host. It looks like surely now we are about to get the light sequence going so that we can get this race underway in Austria. Do apologise for the delay. We've had so many delays this evening. So much has gone wrong over the course of the night so far, with connection issues at the start, with drivers struggling to make the start of the lobby. And I tell you what, we actually might have a bit of an issue here, mightn't we? With Codemasters at the moment. It's brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Looks like the lobby might have crashed. We're going to have an update for you soon. We'll just wait for confirmation as to whether we're going to have to restart the lobby and essentially redo the grid, pretty much. That looks like what we might have to do at this point, because the light sequence still hasn't started. We're still yet to get going. We've still got all the drivers left. Surely, I think that is going to be a lobby restart, I think. And indeed, we are going to have a lobby restart tonight. So, yeah, bear with us. We will we will be back with the Austrian Grand Prix and round 2 of the season as soon as we can. In the meantime, just bear with us. We'll be right back. Right, welcome back again. So hopefully we'll have a working lobby. Thanks for bearing with us. We've got so still 36 laps. We've got a reset grid. What it does mean is that the tyre allocation is a little bit different now compared to what it was. So anyone that used the mediums in Q2 won't get that advantage anymore of starting the race with more soft tyres available to them than they would have had originally. That's the only thing that's a little bit different. Everybody, I think, is still free to kind of choose what tyres they would like to be on. Generally, I think rule of thumb or the gentleman's agreement would be to start on the tyres that they were intending to start on for the original lights out a little bit earlier on. But we'll see. Becco is on pole. And Dreamer's left the session again, so he just keeps on having these issues, unfortunately. We have had that a lot tonight. I don't think it's anyone's fault in particular. I think it is just the EA servers, unfortunately, that have been letting us down quite a lot tonight. It also means that setups are different too. The drivers are no longer locked into the setups that they had from qualifying, so Jack Bowie, if he wants to, can probably change out of that 8 rear wing that he had on, which was described as brave by myself. Matt described it as stupid. I don't know. Whichever description fits. So, what are we doing? So yeah, we are back then. 15 seconds to go until the drivers have to finalise these setups. And Bahandro saying he forgot what he changed his initial setup to. This would be a convenient time. If you had a bad setup on, it would be a convenient time to forget what setup you had on and then go to a new one. But not that I'm suggesting anybody would want to do that at any point. Away we go then on the formation lap once again. So 18-ish drivers in the lobby. We're still kind of waiting to see if Dreamer is going to make his way back into the session. And if he's going to be able to stay back in the session. He was kind of in and out of connectivity before. So we'll see if he's able to rejoin. If he is, good news. If not, then we're going to have 17 drivers essentially taking the start of the Grand Prix with one kind of ghost car just going around. And it does look as though pretty much everybody's chosen the same tyres they went for before. Fake Scouse has gone for the soft tyres. I think he was on mediums before. Carlos on the hards. Squidly Diddley on the hards as well. I know he was on hards before. Mystery, I think, was also on softs before too. So there's probably one or two drivers that haven't gone for the same as before. That's fine. There isn't any obligation to be on the same tyres, in fairness. And we are set then as they come towards the end of the formation lap to get going again. One of the other issues with tyres this year, the fact that they are so much more difficult to get to temperature. We've got a much shorter lap, and that's the reason Becco is just taking his time on the formation lap. The tyres as well as the suspension is so much stiffer, it's difficult to gather that temperature, and spinning off is one of the Alpines of who would that have been? Either way, they've fallen a long way back from where they were. It is Pivis who's just had to rejoin, having spun. He was fine. Unlike in real life, if you fall to the back in the formation, like you have to start from the back or from the pit lane, he's okay. He will be able to just resume his position and start from P7. So no harm done to his race. Tyres will be affected by that, though. If you do spin in the formation lap, that tyre temperature does carry over to the start of the Grand Prix. Becco's been disqualified from the formation lap for something, and he's not quite in his grid slot. We are going to reset slightly, and then hopefully after that the light sequence can begin, and then we can get going. There we go. So just about ready. Becco couldn't convert the pole into win at Monaco. Can he do so in Austria? The Austrian Grand Prix is underway. It's a really good start from Lorenzo in second place. Can Becco fend him off into turn one? Looks like he can. Carlos on the outside now of the Alpha Tauri as they head through the first corner, and spinning off is the Swinney in the Alfa Romeo. Had a decent qualifying. He's managed to just about regather it on the exit of turn one. That's him now down into P10 as a result. Wild Dog's got a train of cars behind him. Pahandro is in there. We've got the McLaren of Dreamer, who I think is ghosting in the process. The two Williams cars of Matty G and Nivy going side by side, and off goes Wild Dog into the wall and out of the race early on in the Austrian Grand Prix. debris flying everywhere, and the Aston Martin then retires early on, having been spun off into the barrier. We have it's either a virtual or a full safety car. We've definitely got a full course caution, that's for sure, with all sorts of shenanigans going on through turn 3. It was a clean start up to then as well. Generally, everybody was behaving themselves relatively well. We had Swinney having a half spin, did so well to collect it, and then sadly contact further back, and that's the end of Wild Dog's race. We had an early collision as well in Monaco. Fake Scouser found himself out of the race after just a couple of corners, and that's all she wrote for Wild Dog now as well in the Austrian Grand Prix. And we've also got some drivers into the pits with damage, so maybe it wasn't so clean. Empajandro, Matty G and Jay Hartnell all into the pits to change their front wings. They have got a safety car period now in order to do so, and that's going to give them the chance to catch back up with fresh tyres as well. So they have lost position, but it's not all over for them in this race in terms of scoring points. So plenty of opportunities left in Austria this evening for them. So back out then comes Empajandro for the AlphaTauri team, as he heads out onto the racetrack. It was just a virtual safety car, not a full one, but it does mean as a result of pitting under the VST, they haven't lost a lap to the leaders. Becco then round the final corner, 9/10 of a second clear of Lorenzo, who sets the fastest lap for AlphaTauri. Carlos in P3 behind for Mercedes. Pinnis in P4 for Alpine. Then Mystery in 5th place. Fake Scouser in P6. Jack Bowen in P7. McKedley in 8th. It's Swinney in 9th, although Swinney's fallen down the order again for Alfa Romeo, and I think, yeah, he's had a spin, hasn't he, for Alfa Romeo, and has he picked up any damage as a result? I think he's got away with it, but that's now him in 14th place, and not an ideal first couple of laps really for Swinney, falling down the order once again. That promotes Daz Parker up into the points then for Mercedes, having started this Grand Prix in 15th position, was knocked out in the first phase of qualifying. Behind him, it's a good exit for Cavallis going up towards turn 6, and squeezed out really by Dreamer, who I think is now properly in the session, which is good to see. Behind them is Squiddly Diddly in the Ferrari. He's been able to make up ground because of the collisions happening in front of him. Lorenzo has stayed within DRS range of Becco in P1, and again because it wasn't a full safety car, as Pimis sets the fastest lap of the race in 4th place, it does mean that DRS was enabled on lap 3, so you can see Lorenzo's rear wing opening, and that's going to allow him to get closer to the back of the Ferrari of Becco as they head up towards turn 3. Carlos with DRS as well, same with Pimis, same with Mystery, and with Fake Scouser. Jack Bowie is right behind Fake Scouser in that battle for 6th position. Purple first sector as well for the Red Bull. It was a good exit though by Fake Scouser out of turn 3 as they head in towards turn 4. Jack Bowie has a look at the inside, but unrealistic to say the least that move was going to pay off. Jay Hartnell, P17 for him. He was again involved in those collisions. Cavallis, and off the track goes Dreamer with Daz Parker involved in that as well. Squiddly Diddly now takes the chance to cut back underneath and get past the McLaren on the way up through turn 5 in towards turn 6, and it just kind of looks as though the McLaren was squeezed out with Cavallis and Daz Parker both coming at him. There was a bit of debris flying about as well. I'm not quite sure who that came off, whether it was Dreamer or whether it was one of either Cavallis or Daz Parker. It looks as though the latter, or the two latter drivers, have managed to keep everything together. I think Dreamer might have lost a bit of debris in the process of all of that. Either way, Squiddly Diddly now is right on the back of this battle for Ferrari. What is now a battle for the final points petting position as it stands. Nivi is 1.7 seconds clear of that lot. Pimis has fallen 1.5 seconds back from Carlos meanwhile, and that's a move down the inside from the Ferrari of Squiddly Diddly on the hard tyres. It's a good spot by Daz Parker, who gives him space on the inside and then just drives clear on the exit. It was a bit of a half move really from Squiddly, so it's a good move. It's a good job that the Mercedes of Daz Parker kind of just saw him coming Further up then, Lorenzo half a second still back from Becco, who isn't shaking the threat of the Alpha Tower at the moment, but he is keeping him just about at bay. Carlos 7/10 of a second further back from them. And then we've got Pimis just falling a little bit further back still, 2 seconds behind. And he's going to be vulnerable now to Mystery because of the fact that he hasn't got DRS. Look how close Lorenzo's getting up towards turn 1. Becco can't quite shake and run. They're both on medium tyres, and Carlos is staying with them despite being on the hards, which again could be an important factor come the end of this race, given the fact that he's going to be on softer tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix. Up towards turn 3 then comes Lorenzo, stays behind Becco for now. Can he get a good exit coming out of turn 3? Dreamer gets a penalty for multiple warnings, and Pimis has been passed by Mystery, and in there as well is Fake Scouser side by side with his teammate. He gets past him on the run down towards turn 4, and behind them is Jack Bowie looking to take advantage. It's a bit of late braking from Fake Scouser, avoids the back of Mystery, and in the space of a couple of corners Pimis has lost P4 and now fallen down to P6, with Jack Bowie now on his tail in the Red Bull, 2.5 seconds ahead of Nokedli himself, and then Nivi, and then the battle between Cavolis, Daz Parker, and Squidley's actually fallen a second back now from Daz Parker. Oh, so close there for Pimis to his teammate. Fake Scouser, off the track he goes as a result, and that is going to be Jack Bowie potentially past him. They're going to be side by side on the way up towards turn 1. Pimis is just in front. Jack Bowie forced to stay behind. Jack Bowie might argue that Pimis left the track and gained an advantage. Pimis will say, well, I was ahead anyway before and after turn 9. Here comes Jack Bowie, though. It might all be trivial because he flies past the Alpine down towards turn 3, but back down the inside. No, Pimis just thinks better of it, and he stays behind the Red Bull. And that then is now 6th place for Jack Bowie. And that battle between Mystery and Fake Scouser hasn't escaped him, so it was important for him to make that move relatively quickly on the second Alpine, and he is now on the back of that battle for P4. The podium places are kind of escaping at the moment. Carlos is really staying in touch with this. Hard tyres on his Mercedes. Oh no, he's not keeping up anymore because he spins, and one mistake is all it takes, and he loses it through the first part of the chicane at turn 7, and that then forces him from P3 down to 8th position. I put the commentator's curse on him, unfortunately. I said he was keeping up with these two, and he was, but he's not now with that error. The hard tyres just a little bit more difficult to keep hold of in the corners. They've got less grip, and it showed there with the Mercedes spinning round. That's a real shame for Carlos, who, with that strategy of being on the hard tyres at the start, and with there being no super early safety car, he was on, I think, for a challenging strategy. Meanwhile, Fake Scouser has now passed Mystery up towards turn 3, and Swinney's out. It wasn't a great start to the race. It wasn't looking like a particularly brilliant middle, unfortunately, and it's a terrible end to the race for Swinney, who has lost it on the exit of turn 1 and got into the wall. I do wonder if that was contact with another driver that's forced him to spin off and lose the fundamental parts of his car as a result. But we have again, I'm not too sure whether that's a virtual or a full safety car that the stewards have sent out onto the racetrack. But either way, Becco now leads by 2.1 seconds. I think it is a virtual safety car because we've not got drivers coming into the pit, so it is just a virtual instead of a full one, with Swinney spearing off into the barrier, although Fake Scouser and Mystery are both into the pits for Alpine and Alfa Romeo respectively. Jack Bowie's come in, Pimis is in, McKedley's in as well for McLaren. There's Pimis making his way into the pit lane. Nivi continues, as does Cavolis in the Red Bull. So quite a few drivers are just going to start falling a fair bit of a way back. Daz Parker stayed out as well for Mercedes, which puts him up to 6th position. Squidly Diddley also still out on the racetrack on his hard tyres. Full safety car. Thank you, Matt. Full safety car. I had no idea because the game won't tell me. So there you go. There it is. The safety car out on the racetrack. Yeah, I'm not too sure actually why it doesn't just say what. I don't know. Anyway, I've given up trying to understand the F1 games at this stage. The safety car's out. That's all you need to know. It is the green Aston Martin safety car that we've got in Spielberg. It collects Becco. So all of the top 7 are still out there on 8-lap old tyres. We've got who have we got? We've got Empajandro, who's still out there on 7-lap-old hards. Matty G is also still out there on 7-lap-old mediums, and Jay Hartnell is still out there on 7-lap-old mediums as well. It's not really been an ideal start to the race for our race winner in Monaco, Jay Hartnell. Involved in a couple of collisions on the opening lap, had to make an early pit stop, and since then his progress just hasn't quite been as quick as he would have wanted, of course, because he got set further back by the fact that he had to pit. But this safety car now is going to bring him a bit further into play, and so we might just see him now start to make some moves up the order, and hopefully that is going to be a good battle in the midfield. He does pit, does Jay Hartnell, so he's going to make his way in for Haas. So he's going to get rid of those medium tyres, and he's going to switch on to a set of, what tyres are we going to see? For Jay Hartnell, it is the hard tyres on the car to potentially take him to the end of the race, although I'm not too sure whether they will go to the end. 27 laps to the end of the race. Doable, maybe doable, but the tyre wear here is quite high, a little bit higher than what you would usually expect at some of the racetracks. So, yeah, maybe, but probably not, I think, is the consensus there on that one. I say consensus. It's a consensus of one. It doesn't really count as a consensus, I wouldn't say. Safety car's in this lap, so Becco will lead us away. I think has he made it further than he did in Monaco? I forgot what lap he crashed out on in Monaco last week, but he might have already made it further, which is good for him. 15 wins from outside the front row in Monaco over the years, and Carlos, as a result of all of that, has been brought back up to P3 as a result of the pit stops happening behind him, or in front of him, who are now behind him. So he may yet get the win from outside of that front row, but we will see. No overtaking until the start-finish line. It's Becco's prerogative as to when he wants to go for it. He can wait until a few metres before the start-finish line if he wants to. He doesn't, of course, want to give everybody a massive tow, but it doesn't matter so much because it's not a massively long home straight. Becco has now gone for it on the exit of turn 10. Lorenzo's gone with it. That's a really good restart from Lorenzo, who's going to be putting pressure on Becco up towards turn 1. Becco doesn't quite need to go defensive at the moment, but Lorenzo's going to be right there. There's no DRS. It is just the slipstream at the moment, but the AlphaTauri is going to be quite tight here to the Ferrari as they head up the hill in towards turn 2. Becco, you can see, is just sort of escaping from Lorenzo as they head up towards the braking zone of turn number 3, clipping the apex, then onto the exit they go, and Becco survives despite Lorenzo making a good restart. Carlos just behind Lorenzo meanwhile as they prepare to battle for P2. Mystery gets back ahead of Fake Scouser on the restart down towards turn 4. Fake Scouser had passed Mystery just before the safety car was deployed for the crash involving Mystery's teammate Swinney on the exit of turn number 1. Pimis in the other Alpine now finds himself just behind Fake Scouser, and Jack Bowie, who had just gotten past Pimis before the safety car, has now got to do that job all over again because he's fallen back behind the Alpine during the safety car phase. So that's not ideal for him. Behind is Nokedli. Meanwhile, we've got Daz Parker and Cavonis going side by side, and Daz Parker gets ahead. In fact, Cavonis pits, so that's the reason for that one. And meanwhile, Squidly Diddley is under pressure from the McLaren of from the Alfa Romeo of Mystery as they head up towards turns 2 and 3. Daz Parker leading that little train. Mystery in towards turn 3 thinks better of the late move down the inside, although gets pretty close into the braking zone. Behind them, Fake Scouser and Pivis are very close to each other, aren't they? Here comes Pivis then. Down towards turn 4 we go, and as we get towards the braking zone of turn number 4, down the inside goes Pimis. Fake Scouser tries to hold the outside, but Pimis has the move done. He's got the line, and he gets ahead of his teammate then, and up into 8th position goes the Alpine, Jack Bowie. He's been staring at the back of Alpines today as Jack Bowie. Once again, he's looking at the back of Fake Scouser. He's got Nokedli and the McLaren just behind him. He himself has got the Williams of Matty G on his tail in P12. Jay Hartnell's made his way back up to P13 off the restart. We've got Empajandro still on 10-lap-old hard tyres, switched onto those in the opening exchanges after the first lap. Oh, kerfuffle, and that's another kerfuffle there because round has gone Kedley after contact from Matty G. Whether that was a potential... Matty G, it looks as though he just got caught out, really, by Kedley. It looks as though he just got caught out by the fact that maybe he wasn't expecting the McLaren to brake. When he did, I don't know. Either way, Squidly Diddly has now been passed by Mystery, and he's under pressure. Daz Parker's in there as well, down the inside, who is now side by side with the Alfa Romeo of Mystery. Mystery stays ahead. Meanwhile, behind them, we've got Fake Scouser and Pimis getting involved with Squidly Diddly, who stays ahead of the first Alpine. Fake Scouser tries to get in there on his teammate. Jack Bowie is still in there. Wide goes Fake Scouser. That also leads Jack Bowie to running wide as well, just behind him. And that massive battle for P5 continues. Mystery now leads it. Daz Parker, the second one in it, and a little bit wide has gone the Alpine of Fake Scouser by the looks of it. Excuse me, it was Pimis. Fake Scouser now is side by side with Pimis going in towards turn number 1, and down the inside he goes, and he gets back ahead of his teammate. Wide goes Pimis. That's a chance surely now for Jack Bowie to get back in front. He's side by side with Pimis down towards or up towards turns 2 and 3. We've seen this before a few laps ago. Jack Bowie gets ahead, and meanwhile Fake Scouser once again challenging Squidly Diddly going up towards turn 3, and Daz Parker's made a mistake. That's put him behind the Alpine. It might also put him behind the Red Bull of Jack Bowie and behind the Alpine of Pimis. It's 3 wide going down towards turn 4, and he has been passed indeed. And that's a spin for Squidly Diddly. There was contact. Thank goodness he's ghosted. Everybody gets past him as a result. More contact going on in the midfield. It all puts Fake Scouser up to P6. Daz Parker's back up to 7th. Jay Hartnell's up to 8th place because wide now goes the Alpine of Pimis, who's forced down to 12th behind Empehandro. At this stage, Jack Bowie has lost out to Dreamer as a result of all of that. He might have damage actually for Red Bull. He does have damage. He's in the pits for Red Bull, and Empehandro then gets past him. He himself is under a little bit of pressure from Pimis as they round turn 10. So both Pimis and Jack Bowie losing out as a result of Squidly Diddly's spin, really. Up towards turn 1 they go. As nothing doing just yet, but Pimis has got a good run out of turn number 1. He's side by side with Empehandro as they head up towards the third corner. Jay Hartnell gets past Daz Parker in towards the apex of turn 3. Pimis has passed Empehandro before they even get to turn 3. Dreamer's been forced wide by Daz Parker as they head on to the third DRS straight. All of that has now brought Pimis and Empehandro closer to that battle. Up ahead, Mystery's making more progress. He gets past Nivi as he goes round the outside of turn 6. Good move from the Alfa Romeo. Up to 4th place he goes, 5 seconds off the podium places, the last of which is occupied by Carlos. We've still got Becco leading this race by 7/10 of a second, just under, from Lorenzo. It's still all going on, really, behind them, because Daz Parker's still under pressure from Dreamer, who I think was, he'll feel he was rudely forced wide at turn 3 on the last lap. And Pimis is making his way back up the order, now having lost positions. Jack Bowie's 14th after his pit stop. He's on the soft compound tyres. And as we head up towards turn number 1, we've barely got time for a breather. Daz Parker's under pressure. Dreamer a little bit wide, I think, through turn 1. That potentially gives Pimis the opportunity. He will close up here. Will Dreamer to Daz Parker. Meanwhile, out front, we've got Becco, who's been passed for the lead by Lorenzo. And Carlos is right in there as well for Mercedes, but Lorenzo leads the Grand Prix. Lorenzo for AlphaTauri is ahead of Becco, and he puts himself then up into P1. Pimis, meanwhile, is past Dreamer heading into turn 4, so he makes his way back up into P9, having been forced out of the points momentarily. Daz Parker, the next one ahead of him. Jay Hartnell's managed to create a 4-second gap over Daz Parker. Excuse me, a 1-second gap. He's 4 seconds behind Fake Scouser, who himself is now challenging with Nivi. And ahead of them, we've got Becco coming into the pits for Ferrari. So he's... Oh, and he's sped in the pit lane as well. That's given him a penalty for the Ferrari team. In he comes then, and they'll put on a set of the hard tyres. Will the Ferrari team, and away then goes Becco. So that 5-second penalty has just made his life a little bit more difficult, to be honest, as he looks to put himself back in contention for the race win. Meanwhile, here comes Fake Scouser on Nivi, heading up towards turn 3, and he gets ahead of Nivi. And up then into 4th place goes the Alpine. 2.5 seconds now back from Mystery, who now occupies that final podium position. Jack Bowes got past Daz Parker for P13. Daz having just come into the pits for Mercedes. Jack Bowie passing him on the exit. And the Red Bull up into P13 just behind his teammate Cavallis, who is on 5 lap old hards at the moment. Up ahead, Dreamer is 8/10 behind Pinnis. And ahead of them, Lorenzo is into the pits for AlphaTauri. He gets the car slowed down for the pit limiter. And it's going to be mediums, probably onto hards as well for him. So he's taken those mediums a fair chunk into the race. And the hards will see him now to the end of this one. Carlos has taken his hards a long way into this one. We'll see him into the pits in the next few laps or so. And then it's going to be very interesting to see whether he can close the gap up to the leaders from there. He had a spin earlier on. He was brought back into play by the safety car. And will that enable him now to go and take the win this evening? Meanwhile, Pinnis 9/10 of a second back from Jay Hartnell. As he has DRS, he gets closer to the back of the Haas down towards turn number 4. He won't be close enough for a move just yet, but it will put him within some sort of distance. Up then through towards turn 6 we go again. And 4/10 of a second meanwhile separating Lorenzo and Becco. So this is a battle for the effective race lead at the moment between these two. Having just come into the pits, we're going to have some more pit lane action as the drivers in front make their way in for their mandatory pit stops. Out of turn 8 we go, down towards 9 and 10. Dreamer gets another penalty for multiple warnings for track limits. And the stewards is incurring the stewards' wrath there again, really. Jack Bowie gets past Cavallis because Cavallis has gone off at turn 7 and 8. So that is him down to P15 now for Red Bull. He is able to continue. Ahead of them, Jay Hartnell gets past Nivi, who is now under pressure from Pinnis, who tries to go to the outside at turn 3. Nivi defends it well, but Pinnis is still right there on the exit. Down towards 4 we go. He tucks in the slipstream. Nivi's got DRS on Jay Hartnell ahead. Is that going to save him the position? Pinnis breaks late, tries to hold the outside at turn 4. Nivi on the inside, and can Pinnis hold on to this one? He's got the inside for the quick left-hander of turn 6. Nivi will try and hold it round the outside now for Williams. Really good battle this. They're giving each other just about enough space and respect. Pinnis still on the inside as they're going towards turn 7. And Nivi holds the position for the time being. But Pinnis hasn't gone away just yet. They will continue that battle. Dreamer now is right behind them on what is now, I think, 10 seconds of penalties for him in the McLaren. As Nivi on the exit doesn't have DRS anymore on Jay Hartnell. That's a chance for Pinnis potentially. He won't get it done in towards turn 1, but he will have a good chance now heading up the hill in towards 2 and 3. Good exit though from Dreamer in the McLaren. He now is right behind the Alpine, so it's a three-way battle at the moment for P5 between Nivi, Pinnis and Dreamer. Pinnis has a think at going down the inside. Nivi breaks late and stays in front. Good exit though from Pinnis out of turn 3, gets the DRS, and again Nivi does not have DRS on the way down towards turn 4. Here comes Pinnis. He goes to the outside of the Williams. Can he get the move done this time? Nivi defends it. It's a little bit closer. There's almost contact if there wasn't any, but eventually Pinnis gets in front and he's past Nivi, and in then to P5 goes the Alpine with Dreamer next up to have a go at the Williams. It's oh so close in that battle, and Dreamer now oh no, he's off. There was contact, I think, between Dreamer and Nivi, and that is all she wrote for that battle. Meanwhile, Nakedley and Lorenzo are going at it. Becco involved in that one as well. Becco's down the inside of Lorenzo, almost contact. Lorenzo does well to hold the position round the outside. Nakedley then, it was one McLaren challenging Nivi, it's now the other one as Lorenzo goes defensive heading up towards turn 1. Becco thinks about the move to the inside, stays behind for now. And it's a great exit from Lorenzo with Nakedley just in front of him. Nakedley still trying to challenge Nivi. Lorenzo goes to the outside heading through turn 2, then up towards turn 3. And Nakedley's going to break late to defend that position. Lorenzo forced to the outside, way off the circuit goes Nivi, and that's a chance for Nakedi now to get past him. Lorenzo still involved in that battle, as is Beko, and as they head down towards turn 4, it could well be 3 wide. Nivi is now passed by Nakedi. Lorenzo on the inside, almost contact, he gets past Nivi as well. Beko gets a good exit. Can he now also make his way past going in towards turn 6? Yes, he can. Goes all the way around the outside and gets past the Williams. So Nivi losing positions hand over fist as these drivers on quicker tyres all come through. Into the pits then comes the Mercedes of Carlos. So he's going to get rid of those hard tyres. Onto the mediums he goes. I was wondering maybe if he was going to dare to take those hards long enough to put the soft tyres on for the end of the race, but he's not going to try that, and he then will rejoin in... Oh, where's it going to be? Is it going to be ahead of that battle? It could well be, you know, but they're going to have better momentum coming out of turn 1. Will Lorenzo and Beko, and Carlos is right there with them, and he's on fresher medium tyres, and it's 3 wide going up towards turn number 3. Down the inside goes Beko, and has he got the move? Carlos makes a little bit of contact with Lorenzo, and it's a 3-way battle for what is now the effective race lead between these 3 drivers. Carlos gets past them both. Down towards turn 4, Beko is ahead of Lorenzo as they head into the braking zone. That couldn't have worked out better for Carlos, with Beko now in front of Lorenzo in what is going to be P2 once all the pit stops shake out. So that's a massive, well, it's brilliant for Carlos. It's a great strategic move from the Mercedes, and it's paid off brilliantly. Fake Scouser is into the pits now for Alpine, as he will get rid of those medium tyres. The battle for the lead isn't really over just yet. Carlos is now battling away with Nakedi for what is currently P6. That now becomes P5. He gets ahead of the McLaren into the braking zone of turn number 1. And away then we go in towards turn 3. Into the braking zone we come. Carlos just ahead of Nakedi, just behind Empajandro, who will maybe try and do his teammate a couple of favours, but isn't really able to do so. Up then towards turn 6 we go. Carlos through turn 6, down then in towards turn 7, and then through the quick right-hander of 8. Empajandro now finds himself half a second ahead of Nakedi. Those two are battling for position. The two behind them, Beko and Lorenzo, aren't really battling for position. The important thing here is that Carlos is putting more and more drivers now between himself and Beko. The only thing about it for him is he's such the fastest lap, is that he's got to make sure those medium tyres can actually make it to the end of the Grand Prix. As Nivi finally comes into the pits for Williams, as does Jack Bowie for Red Bull. And in then we go. Medium tyres onto the Red Bull, and it is a front wing change as well, so I think he was involved in contact somewhere, wasn't he? Jack Bowie. Dreamer is into the pits as well now for McLaren, and Matty G has come to a stop, and Dreamer's out. Dreamer has retired from the session for McLaren. Where's he come a cropper, I wonder? And is it going to cause a safety car? It's only yellow flags in Sector 3 at the moment. I can't really see where Dreamer has lost it. It might have been on the exit of the final corner. Either that, or he's just retired in the pits, which he might have actually done. So either way, that's him out of the race. We've still got yellow flags now in Sector 1. But I think... I don't think we're going to get a safety car at all, are we? Beko now on the back of Empajandro, who, if he is going to do his teammate a couple of favours, has a chance to do so now. Out we go then, in towards turns 2 and 3. With Beko now on the inside. Empajandro doesn't go defensive, although he does fight it on the outside of the right-hander of 3. And he has got a great exit as well, Empajandro, and gets back ahead of Beko on the exit. And Lorenzo is still right in this battle in the other AlphaTauri. Beko feels the need to go defensive. Lorenzo will go to the outside. Can he pull that move off? he'll try it, you know, and it's a great exit as well. He finds some really good grip on the outside of turn 4, but it doesn't quite carry on into 5 and 6. And Beko does stay in front. So Beko still behind Epajandro, who's doing a brilliant job for his teammate here, keeping him behind. And now Beko's in a bit of trouble. Here comes Lorenzo. Doesn't quite get in front. Beko on the inside now of Epajandro. Really big move from the Ferrari. And Epajandro might just have to play the team game, and he tries to. He ends almost moving across on his teammate. He does go to the inside, and he lets his teammate go as they head it towards turn 1. There was almost a little bit of miscommunication between the AlphaTauris, but they sort themselves out, and Lorenzo is back on the tail of Beko. Carlos is now 4.6 seconds ahead of Nokedli, who is still yet to pit since 17 laps ago when he went on to those hard tyres. Mystery still going on 17 lap old medium tyres for Alfa Romeo. The podium potentially could be a shout for them, but there are 11 laps to go. We are running out of laps really for them to be in contention for the rostrum places. Jay Hartnell in P2 for Haas. He's still on those old hard tyres. Of course, there's the possibility as well that he might still try and get those tyres to the end, Jay Hartnell. Again, it's not completely unforeseeable. It's unlikely as Pimis comes in the pits for Alpine. That releases Carlos now into third place for Mercedes. But you can see Jay Hartnell's not going to, he's not going to keep Carlos behind him, is he? Carlos being on much fresher and, of course, softer rubber as well. So Jay shortly is due another pit stop. Nokedli, Beko and Lorenzo now all with penalties as well, whilst Carlos isn't. So the picture just continues to look brighter really for Carlos. Here comes Lorenzo up towards turn 3, getting closer to the pole sitter Beko as we converge on the apex, and then on to the exit with the AlphaTauri flicking open the DRS rear wing, gets him closer down towards turn 4. Doesn't look as though he's going to be close enough, and he isn't. So he stays in front, does Beko, for the time being, of the AlphaTauri. But that battle, I'm sure, will continue. Meanwhile, Fake Scouser is just behind the AlphaTauri of Epajandro. He's recently pitted, has Fake Scouser, so he's got the AlphaTauri at his mercy, really. Epajandro on what are now 25 lap old hard tyres. Hasn't pitted since his early stop, picking up damage in the opening laps of the Grand Prix, and he'll stay out for another lap. Will Epajandro with the Alpine just behind, who has to correct the rear slightly on the exit of turn number 9. And Fake Scouser now goes to the inside down the home straight and up in towards turn 1 we go, and he does get ahead of the AlphaTauri, and Fake Scouser then rises up to 7th position with a battle with Nokedli, Jay Hart and the Mystery, you rather feel, coming up for him later on in the race. So he wants to make sure his medium tyres are in as good a nick as they possibly can be. Epajandro almost having a look there into turn 3 at getting back ahead of Fake Scouser, but he's having none of it, and he stays in front of the AlphaTauri. Beko 0.3 of a second behind Nokedli now, in a battle for 4th position. Lorenzo's fallen 0.8 of a second back from the Ferrari, still within DRS range, which is important for him as we make our way down towards 7 and 8. In amongst all of that, by the way, Cavolis also retired from the Grand Prix, as look how close Beko gets in towards turn 9. Has a think about the move down the inside. Nokedli stays in front for now. Beko now dives down the inside into turn 10. That's cost him a lot of momentum, going for a move that probably wasn't really on. Lorenzo has the run up towards turn 1. Beko becoming a little bit impatient, trying to pass the McLaren. And as they head through turn 1, Lorenzo's going to get a good exit, as is Beko. In fact, Beko's not got a great run. He is going to get closer to Nokedli, but you can see as he gets a penalty, Beko, Lorenzo getting a lot closer to him. Beko is now down the inside once again of the McLaren of Nokedli, who will hold the outside, and Lorenzo cuts back underneath, and he's going to try and get the good exit now, heading down towards turn 4. Nokedli stays in front of Beko. It was a good run on the outside. Now Beko's going to the outside of turn 4. And it's a good move by Beko. Is he in front? Yes, he is. This time manages to get in front of the McLaren and stay in front as well. Lorenzo just behind, so he's not been able to follow Beko immediately through. He'll want to get past the McLaren as quickly as he possibly can, as into the pits now comes Mystery for Alfa Romeo. Lorenzo is now past Nokedli. Is he? Yes, he is. So up then into 5th place he goes, as Mystery is on to a set of soft tyres to go to the end of the Austrian Grand Prix. Where's he going to be relative then to Fake Scouser? That's going to be the important question. There is Fake Scouser going through turn 1 now, and he will just about get his nose in front, I think, as they now have a drag race up towards turn 3. Fake Scouser on the inside, and Mystery gets past him as they head up towards turn 3 into P6. He goes, and he's on fresh soft tyres as well, is Mystery. And meanwhile, up ahead, Jay Hartnell's been passed by Carlos for the lead of the race. And I think at this stage, Jay Hartnell is going to try and take those hard tyres to the very end of this Grand Prix. I think it's too late almost for him to pit. Unless he does so now. I don't know where that would feed him back out, though. It'd be a bit of a way, I think, at this stage. Yeah, well, it'd be too much time, wouldn't it, at this stage for him to pit? He'd be basically down to P9, I would wage. So... meanwhile, Empajandro is down the inside of Nivi, having just come into the pits for AlphaTauri, so back up into the points playing positions he goes. So back then into those points is the AlphaTauri driver, so P10 for him, and he now is half a minute behind Daz Parker, who himself is 22.3 seconds adrift of the I'm looking at the lead times, aren't I? Sorry, Empajandro is 8 seconds behind Daz Parker himself, is nearly 6 seconds behind Pimis. Up ahead, Lorenzo still within DRS range of Becco, who was beginning to close on Jay Hartnell. He's just closed by about 3 seconds in the last lap, has Becco, but we're on lap 31 of 36, so who knows? If Jay Hartnell can keep his tyres in relatively good nick, who knows if he can actually try and defend from Becco towards the end of this race. But you do rather feel that if Becco can get there, there's going to be a bit of a sitting duck waiting for him. Meanwhile, Nokedli's under pressure from Mystery as they head up towards turn 9. Mystery gets ahead of Nokedli as they negotiate 5th position. Fake Scouser is there as well, and he'll try and snatch P6 away from the McLaren driver. It's then 5 seconds back to the second Alpine again. Nokedli gets a penalty for McLaren. Fake Scouser doesn't have one, so that puts him ahead on the timing screens by the end of the race, provided he doesn't get a penalty of his own. Up towards turn 3 we go. Fake Scouser stays just behind the McLaren, and Nokedli 8/10 of a second back from Mystery. Down towards turn 4 we go. And Fake Scouser still then having to just stay behind him, having to sit back a little bit, not quite able to find his way past at the moment. Both Fake Scouser and Pimis retired from the Monaco Grand Prix last week. They're both in the points at the moment, so it's been a good race so far for them. Of course, there are still a few laps left to go for them to make it to the end and see the checkered flag this evening. Importantly for Fake Scouser, as he does now get past Nokedli, who comes into the pits. He's got Mystery, Lorenzo and Becco all in front, and they've all got penalties. So, I tell you what, there could well be a shot at a podium here for Fake Scouser, potentially. Depends on his pace towards the end. Nokedli pits for McLaren then, and he's back out on medium tyres. It's 4 seconds between Jay Hartnell and Becco, so that gap isn't closing as much as it was. And Jay Hartnell, actually, you know what, he might have a chance here at keeping second, because Becco's on, he's got a couple of penalties, remember, and Lorenzo's on a penalty as well, as is Mystery. So this actually could be a really good opportunity for Jay Hartnell, having started this race down in P16, and this could be a wonderful chance for him to keep second place on a massive, mega, mammoth stint on hard tyres. Both him and Carlos have played a blinder today strategically, with Carlos starting on the hard tyres, now on the mediums, and set to take the victory tonight. Nokedli finds himself half a second back from Empajandro, who himself was flying a few laps ago. He's now got a McLaren who is flying 2, a little bit wide. Goes Nokedli on the exit of turn 6, gets away with it. Through 7 and 8 they come. And I can't imagine it's going to be too long before Nokedli finds his way past. It depends if Empajandro can still find some good pace on those soft tyres having pitted not too long ago himself, as they make their way now onto the home straight. Kedley 0.6 of a second back. Still chasing, still probing, still looking for a way through past the AlphaTauri, and then up towards turn 3 we come. He's got DRS, he's getting closer to Mphandro, who doesn't make a huge effort to defend the inside, and the McLaren does get past Kedley up into P9, although, again, I think Mphandro is probably quite aware that the McLaren does have some penalties to serve at the end of the race, and so that could well just put him back in front by the end of it. 0.7 of a second between Becco and Lorenzo in their battle for third. Becco now is 2 seconds back from Jay Hartnell, so he's getting closer to the Haas, but again he's got penalties, so he hasn't got time, has he really? He hasn't got time, Becco, to pass Jay Hartnell and then generate the gap that he has to, and I think that is going to do for the for second place. I think that will do. He's got 8 seconds of penalties, has Becco, so that he's not going to be on the podium tonight. Lorenzo will be. At the moment he will be, but it's close. If Fake Scouser can pick up his pace, then he might be. Oh, it's going to be a tight end to this race, isn't it, in terms of the podium finishers. Meanwhile, Mystery challenging Lorenzo. They're on the same amount of penalties, those two, so this is for position. This is essentially now for third place, this battle, unless Fake Scouser has anything to say about it, although he's just fallen 3.5 seconds back from Mystery, so it's not looking great for him getting on to the podium at the moment. It looks as though he'll be taking 5th place, I believe, from this Austrian Grand Prix. Couple of laps to go in Spielberg. Carlos is going to comfortably win this race by the looks of it. 0.7 of a second now separate Becco and Jay Hartnell in their fight for second, but it looks like Jay will keep hold of second place as long as he doesn't get any penalties here. He should be alright to keep hold of that position. Fake Scouts is 3.3 back from Mystery. Mystery so close now to Lorenzo as they head up towards turn 3. Thinks about it, doesn't quite go for it yet as they clip the apex. Got a good run now, Mystery, out of turn 3, and he's side by side with Lorenzo down towards turn 4. And it's Alfa Romeo versus AlphaTauri, and it is the Alfa Romeo surely that's going to come out on top, although that's a late braking move from Lorenzo to the outside of turn number 4. On the inside is Mystery, and past is Mystery. Into P4 he goes, so... Oh, and off. Is that Jay Hartnell? It is. Is that a puncture? He's spun round, and that is second place gone. Second place has evaporated for Jay Hartnell. That is absolute heartbreak. Heartbreaking for the Haas. It wasn't a puncture, it was just a spin. Oh, and a podium finish has gone just like that. Jack Bowie gets past Squidly Diddley for P12. He went for a spin in the Ferrari. Meanwhile, out in front, Carlos wins the Austrian Grand Prix. Mystery takes second place. Lorenzo will be third, ahead of Fake Scouser in P4. Pimis in 5th, just behind. A good result for Alpine after a double non-finish in Monaco last time out. Becco ends up 6th place because of his penalties. Jay Hartnell, oh, that is absolutely heartbreaking. He ends up in 7th place. Daz Parker in 8th. And Mphandro takes 9th from Kedley. And Kedley, with his penalties, I think will stay ahead of Nivi. Yes, he will. And he will take the final point, with Jack Bowie eventually taking P12 for Red Bull. Ahead of Squidly Diddley when they cross the line. That really is an absolute... I don't know. There's not really any words you can use to describe that for Jay Hartnell. He was on for second until so late on, and just one mistake put pay to his chances of a podium tonight after such a good race. But it's Carlos who started third, went for a spin, came back to third, and then with a brilliant strategy and some fantastic racing, won the Austrian Grand Prix. We had a Haas on the top step of the podium in Monaco. We had a Mercedes on the top step of the podium yesterday in Brazil. And we've got a Mercedes leading the way in Austria this evening. Very, very well done indeed to Carlos Killer, who is our winner tonight. In round number 2 of the Formula Racing League season in Tier 2 in Season 7. So it is Carlos who gets the win for Mercedes. 2 winners in 2 races. Mystery in second place for Alfa Romeo. Lorenzo in P3 means it's 2 races and 2 completely different podiums as well. Felix Gausa takes 4th place in the Alpine. Becco in 6th for Ferrari, with Jay Hartnell in P7 after that really, oh man, an absolutely awful moment at the end to spin away from the podium places. Daz Parker in 8th in the second Mercedes, and Bahandro takes P9 ahead of Nikedli in the McLaren. Nivi in P11. Jack Bowie wasn't his day today. 12th place for him in the Red Bull. Squidly Diddley takes P12. Matty G with the fastest lap at the end, but he's P14. Dreamer P15. Cavolis. Dreamer out of the race, I should say. Cavolis behind him out of the Grand Prix. Ahead of the Alfa Romeo of Swinney and the Aston Martin of Doc, who unfortunately for him ended up spinning very early on in the Grand Prix. So Wild Dog ending up out of this race. And that's it then for tonight. 2 races in to this 15-round season in the Formula Racing League Championship. It's been a pleasure to have your company again this evening. Hopefully next Tuesday night we'll go without quite as many issues as we had tonight, with connection really playing quite a detrimental role over the course of the evening. But we'll be back for the Canadian Grand Prix, and it will be a sprint event as well next time out in the Formula Racing League in Montreal. So that's it from me for now. It is Carlos on the top step of the podium in Austria tonight. 2 rounds in, we have 2 different winners. Until next Tuesday, take good care of yourselves, and goodbye.